Welcome back to Access All Areas. Joining Damien Barrett and I is Dr. Peter Larkins. Good afternoon to you, Doc.
Good afternoon, Das. Nice to be with you.
Let's start straight away with the Demons, and Mitch Clark found himself in a moon boot.
Such a valuable player. Yeah, look, an incident during the match where he actually took a hit to the head and he went off and they had a bit of concussion. You see the right moon boot on there at the huddle where he actually sprained the midfoot. He'll be having scans later today, Das, to see, but there's some doubt whether he'll get up from that. So,
has he done it there, Doc, or has he carried it?
No, it was a new injury on the day. I checked with him, so I didn't. You really don't see the mechanism. You'll see him just gesture in a minute, Dame, just pointing down towards the right ankle there. So, and you're limping down on the steps when he goes through. So he couldn't run around on that, and so the moon boot is a protective thing. They weren't concerned it was a nasty one. They're not expecting any fractures there, but with a midfoot ligament sprain, you can't get running for a week or two. So we have to wait and see later this week.
Rowan Bale was a late withdrawal for that game with concussion relating back for some weeks. What's
4 weeks down the track now? Yeah, look, it just shows the conservative approach. I think AFL's he's got no symptoms. He trains pretty well, and he's just failing that computer test that they do, which is called a cognitive test. So it just gives you processing of information, ability to recall things. So the AFL doctors are being very, very sort of harsh on players who aren't ticking off the three boxes. So he's got no signs, he's got no symptoms, he's failing the computer test. So he's training, and look, he'll do it again this week, and he could play this week.
Mumford for the Swans missed a big chunk of footy with a back injury during this season. He played on Friday night, wasn't his usual effective self. No. And this happened late in the game. Not much appeared to happen.
I was at this game, Dame. He missed 7 weeks after having an operation for an infected back from a cortisone injection after the round 2 match. So a really unusual injury. He's still getting scar tissue and pain in the back. So he played pretty well early on. Got a couple of stretches of the back. It's going to stay with him through the whole season. So arguably he'll be right to play this week, but again, that could happen early in the match. So I don't think it's a major issue, but it certainly slowed him down. It shows that he's not 100%. He's still sore.
Jeremy Laidler from the Blues, I reckon, is an underrated player, how important he is for their structure. He's had another shocker, Doc.
Look, in the NAB season, he dislocated his kneecap, had surgery, and I thought it was amazing. He came back 23 days later and played in the main season. We all said, oh, what a great comeback. Then he did it again. It was in round 4, dislocated again, had a further bout of surgery and rehabbed again. And then having dislocated again in the VFL, Das, he won't have an arthroscope this time. I imagine they might do an operation to what we call stabilise the kneecap so it can't slip out anymore. That is definitely season over if that happens.
Is there a management issue here, Doc? As you said, this happened pre-season. They rushed him back for round 1, happened again not long after that, and again on the weekend in the VFL.
At the time I spoke to them, they were very happy that he'd done all the rehab. He played with tape on the knee and he was icing up and a bit swollen afterwards. So clearly the first match back he came up sore. So look, it's ahead of schedule to come back that quickly, and of course it's now maybe, in retrospect everyone's a genius, Damo, but it's certainly one of those operations that he will need now. I can't imagine that they'll just rehab him again because he wants to get over that. He doesn't want to be like a Ty Kennelly or a Warren Treadray that kept happening and happening.
Another one with the knee injuries, Razor Ray Chamberlain, an umpire who just had a crack at it this year.
Well, he's been a favourite in the media for a long, long time, as you know, and Razor developed a similar injury to Jonathan Patton. He had the tendonitis at the front of his knee, had an arthroscope to have a look and clean out some scar tissue, and they thought it was going to be all right, and every time he ramps up the training, Razor's getting the knee soreness. So, look, he's a week-to-week proposition at the present time, he hasn't played or hasn't done a game yet, so we'd like to get Razor back. So it's not a degenerative knee, he hasn't got the cartilage problems, but he's just had the similar to the pattern, and the arthroscope didn't quite get it right. So he's under rehab, and he's just got to get through the training. They're pretty tough on the umpires for their fitness.
Probably needs to harden up a little bit. I would have thought, Razor.
Tell him that.
No one's going to tackle him. Just get out there and run.
But he gets knocked over.
I know. No, I'm only sort of half joking. No, Matt Maguire with his elbow. What happened?
An interesting one. This is 8 minutes into the first quarter of the Brisbane game, and he gets caught between Ace Cordy and Mitch Golby, and he gets a hyperextension of the elbow. And you just watch it again. He puts the left arm out there, and basically a teammate probably takes him out. He had a sensation that it moved out. He had enormous pain. I mean, I saw him coming off to us. I thought he's got a broken collarbone now. You can see them cradling the arm. He went back on for a couple of minutes and then got subbed out a few minutes later, just up to quarter time. He's had a scan which has ruled out any major break, but he's got a little bit sprained elbow. I reckon Goose will play again. He was interesting conversation. Mark Harvey and Michael Voss were trying to get him back on a quarter time. And Goose is saying, I can't push off with the left at all. I'll play one-handed if you want me to. He'll get back to play. The pain's settled pretty well.
You're saying he's a bit soft, Doc, eh?
I didn't want to say that because if you heard me say, no, he absolutely had a lot of pain. He had the painkillers. They could not get rid of the pain in the ligaments. It was pretty sore and did settle after the match.
I think you are saying he's soft, Doc. Yeah. I caught up with John Worsfold on Friday in Access All Areas. Asked about Mark LeCras. As unlikely as it sounds, let's have a listen to what he said when asked, could he return this year?
We know players have come back inside, I think, 4 months even, and played at a lot higher risk than waiting the 12 months. So that's always the question you've got to ask. And, we won't make any decisions on whether the risk is worth it or not until much later in the season. It's unlikely, but he could play. There's no doubt that he could play late in the season.
I think it's unlikely. I think that's the key word in there. Look, 6 months, which will be the beginning of September from his surgery, it's absolutely cutting it very, very fine in current AFL footy days. Can he play? He can. Is he at high risk? Enormous risk. And you'd hate to think he's going to have a setback by coming back at the 6 month mark. 8 or 9 months is about right for the graft inside the knee. I mean, outside the knee it'll look fine. He'll be doing some training and some drills. But inside the knee, as surgeons, and we want the graft to be as strong as possible. So it'll be an enormous risk to play him, is my answer. And I think it is unlikely, even though, I mean, they're going to be finalists. They've got Embley potentially coming back.
When's he come back?
Well, Embley was shoulder reco in round 2. Round 16 I had him penciled in to come back, and so do they. So you're not too far away. Look, Josh Kennedy with his foot injury, round 5, though again they were expecting him to be about 3 months.
On track?
Yeah, look, I think he's about 6 to 7 weeks away. So
and Mark Nikoski with the hamstring?
Mark Nikoski the closest to the lot, because he ripped the hamstring off the bone. Had to have a second go at the surgery because it ripped it off again a week later when he had a spasm in bed and pulled it off. So Nikoski with round, he did it in the NAB Grand Final. So 3 months from that, he's probably within the next 4 weeks, Nikoski.
Just quickly back again on Lacroix. They're going to play, in finals.
Yep.
Chance to play in a grand final. Saw Tony Liberatore come back after 12
Well,
weeks.
yeah.
Lower limb.
Yeah,
You go to the play and you say, I might never get a chance ever again.
I
Does that come
understand
into
that
it, Doc, or not?
Now, I'll tell you about Libba. Libba didn't need an ACL. He was so low to the ground with such big quad muscles. He had enough strength in his knee. I call the Liberatore phenomenon with some of the players. Like David Roden's a good example of a guy coming back. Lacroix's a bit thinner, a bit more agile, changes direction a bit faster. Look, those days of coming back trying to break the world record, I'll mention David Schwartz to you as a bloke who played footy when the surgeons were trying to get them back faster. It just doesn't make sense to take a risk. I'm not saying it's impossible. I think he's such a valuable player. I know the pressure to play in a grand final or be in the final when you think, I think he's got a good career ahead of him. I think they'll make the decision close to the time. They'll make the right decision. He'll be putting pressure on him.
Outstanding work as always from you, Doc. Great to catch up. Pete Larkins there with all the injury report from round 13. Up next, the Melbourne skipper Jack Trengove joins us on Access All Areas.